Have you ever stopped to think that a simple dream could be the turning point in your life? It seems like a distant thought, doesn't it? Maybe you think dreams are just vague images or meaningless stories that the mind creates while we rest. But what if I told you that dreams could actually be divine messages, signs of something greater, capable of completely transforming your destiny? It's hard to believe, isn't it? Because when we are facing difficulties, we often forget the power that faith and reflection can have on our lives. But what if you paid more attention to these moments? What if, through a simple dream, you could glimpse the path to a life full of purpose and blessings? Get ready to discover how dreams, faith, and purpose are deeply intertwined and how they can, indeed, change your life forever. Stay with me and see why you will never look at your dreams the same way again. Dreams are like mysterious letters sent by God, filled with purpose and meaning, but not always understood at first glance. Lemuel, for example, was puzzled by the images that appeared in his dreams. Barren landscapes, wasted seeds, and distant voices that seemed to whisper something important. He couldn't piece them together, but each scene was a divine invitation to pause, reflect, and seek answers in faith. Sometimes, God speaks to us like this, not with clear words, but with a crystal clear intention to take us out of autopilot and guide our hearts. Interestingly, God also uses seemingly random circumstances to reinforce what dreams begin to reveal. Lemuel went through a period of spiritual desert in his life, a void without direction. However, it was precisely in that dry place that he began to realize that his dreams were not mere nighttime fantasies. That desert, instead of being a punishment, became fertile ground for him to connect with something greater, the divine plan. God uses our struggles and moments of solitude to shape His message, which we often only understand in hindsight. So, what can we do when we find ourselves in this barren land, surrounded by doubts? A practical tip is to create a dream and reflection journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just an ordinary notebook will do. By recording dreams, impressions, and even daily challenges, we begin to identify patterns, inspirations, and answers. This practice not only helps organize our thoughts but also strengthens our faith. After all, when we understand that every detail may hold a message, coincidence ceases to be just coincidence. But here's the key: dreams alone don't bring change. When Lemuel finally began interpreting his dreams, he realized they carried a calling to act with faith. Help came from the elder Aton, who encouraged him to face that physical and spiritual desert as an opportunity, not an obstacle. Aton showed him that faith without action is like seeds kept in a sack. They have potential but will never bloom. So, Lemuel decided to break the cycle of stagnation. He started working on the barren land of his circumstances, even without guarantees that anything would grow. And this is where the magic happens. By watering the dry soil with effort and faith, Lemuel saw small sprouts emerge where there had only been dust. This is the power of trusting in God's plans and acting before the evidence appears. In our own lives, our desert might be a career without direction, a struggling relationship, or even a sense of emptiness. But what if, like Lemuel, we started investing in these forgotten areas? Sometimes, taking a quick course, having an honest conversation, or simply dedicating time to prayer are the small steps that can change everything. The lesson is clear: God does not call us to wait idly. He wants us to be co-creators in His promises. And when we take the first steps, He turns the impossible into possible. So, where do you start? How about identifying that neglected area in your life and taking the first step today? Because the secret is not in how promising the land appears, but in how willing we are to believe that God is faithful. God is always speaking. The problem is that we are often not listening. For Lemuel, dreams were like handwritten letters sent directly from heaven. But how many of these messages had he ignored before deciding to take action? It was only when he began to pay attention to the coincidences and the whispers of his conscience that he realized that God doesn't use megaphones but rather subtle signs. Often, these signs are found in the circumstances around us: doors that open or close, unexpected words we hear, or even an inner restlessness. Imagine this. You feel a persistent desire to change careers, but fear of the unknown holds you back. Then, you overhear someone talking about opportunities in your field of interest. Coincidence? Or perhaps the push you needed to take the next step. Just as Lemuel began to interpret his dreams, we are called to interpret the clues God gives us. This requires attention and prayer, but also courage to respond. And how do we know if it's God speaking? His signs usually invite us to grow, trust, and act in alignment with our purpose. The key is to stay vigilant. When you pray and surrender your worries to God, be attentive to the answers. They may not come as you expect, but they always come. What Lemuel learned, and what we can learn from him, is that the greatest mistake is remaining inactive. God moves heaven and earth for those who are willing to follow his voice, even without fully understanding everything. After all, the journey of faith is never about seeing the final destination, but about walking in trust step by step. When Lemuel received his dream, he wasn't sure what to do with that mysterious symbol. But one thing was clear: God was speaking, and that dream carried a promise. Sometimes, God speaks to us in riddles, in ways that don't make sense at first. But the truth is that dreams, like visions, are seeds planted in the soil of our spirit. They are promises of something greater that is yet to come, waiting for the right moment to sprout and manifest in our lives. The key is to trust this process, even when the land seems barren. Imagine you have a vivid dream about a great project involving serving others, but everything around you seems to say, it's not the right time yet. Maybe you are in a difficult phase, lacking resources or support. Lemuel also faced his spiritual deserts. But he didn't let discouragement take over. He believed that the dream was a promise, not a suggestion. And the same is true for us. God gives us visions of our fulfilled life, even when we have no idea how to reach that reality. Patience is necessary. God's timing is not ours, and his promises often unfold gradually. Sometimes, we need to plant first and then wait for the harvest. And if you are wondering whether you truly deserve to see your dream come to life, remember it's not about worthiness but about faith and trust in God's purpose. Lemuel's dreams were not just for his own benefit but served a greater purpose to bless others. When he chose to follow divine guidance and transform his barren land, what seemed like just a practical action became a living testimony of God's power. Sometimes, we think our victories are only for our own pleasure or comfort, but the true blessing of God is revealed when we share this transformation with others, inspiring and strengthening the faith of those around us. Your story, with all its challenges, has the potential to impact others. Often, we go through hardships not only to learn but to serve as examples of overcoming. So, have you ever considered how your own journey could be a testimony of faith to someone around you? Subscribe so that this message reaches more people.